Hello everyone, it's Jen. I hope you're doing well and staying safe. I have a 4-card video for you today using the new release Lawn Fawn Swan Soiree. So we're going to jump into the coloring. I'm going to show you how I colored the white swan, a black swan, and then some of the other colors I used for the images here. So I'm starting off with the white swan, and I'm using a 3-color blend here, W3, W1, and W00. If you are new to my channel, the caps are to the left-hand side, as you can see, and I always have them from darkest at the top down through to the lightest to the bottom. So as you can see here, I'm also coloring in the little gosling. What's it? I should have looked up what a baby swan is called. Anyways, okay, so we'll just call it the baby swan. So I'm coloring that up at the same time using the same markers. However, I'm coloring in the image so that it looks more of a gray tone than it does white. For the black swan, I'm using W9, W7, and W5. I'm just outlining here with the W5 where I want my darkest shadows to be. I find this the easiest most of the time, but especially when doing darker colors. So now you can see I'm bringing in the W9 here, and this is the darkest marker that I'm going to be using, and I'm just laying that down where I want the deepest contrast to be. And then I'm going to blend that out with my W7. So just pulling that darker color out and then adding some of that W7 to the entire outline of the image. Once I have that done, I can bring in the W5 and just go ahead and blend out that W7. It takes a little bit to get that W7 and the W5 blended, so I am just going to go over it a few times. So now I'm going to add some little dots to our baby swan. For that, I'm using W9, which is really dark, and then I'm adding in some W5 as well, and this just adds some fun detail to this little cutie. For the beak on the baby swan, using W7 and W5. For the cattails, I wanted to keep the colors consistent, so I'm using W5, W3, and W1, just adding the darkest shades to one side. For the beaks on our swans, I'm using W7 on the white swan and then blending that out with the E04, the RV11, and the 0. And the same for the black swan, I'm just leaving out that dark color. So for the pink color that I'm using in all of the cards today, I'm using the E04 and the RV1. I wanted the water lilies here to look like they were white with a touch of pink, so I do bring in the C7, not the C7, the C1, and then blend that out with the colorless blender. Now I do bring in some gold tones here, so I'm using Y28, Y26, and YR23 for that. Colored in the little crown and also the flowers. I do different combinations on the flowers for the various cards. So for my leaves, my foliage, I'm using a dark blue-green color combination. So I'm using the BG78, the BG49, and then the BG45, I believe. And for the yellows, I'm using Y15, Y13, and Y11. So there's all my coloring complete, and I did hand cut all of these out watching TV one night, so I have lots of little images I can play with. I brought some of that gold in on the cattails as well. And now we can move on to card number 1. So card number 1 is probably the simplest design, but I think it's really pretty. I went ahead and used the Lawn Fawn Cloudy Stencil to add some clouds to the background here in a yellow color. I used Fossilized Amber for that. Cut it out with a stitched circle die. And I'm just adding some foam here to the sides of my pond. Now I did stamp out these ponds both in Distress Oxide ink in Peacock Feathers, that's this one, and then the lighter tone I did with the Lawn Fawn. Which one did I use? I used the, I can't see it in here, in my list of stuff. But it's Merman or Mermaid, I believe, that I used for the Lawn Fawn ink. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place 2 of the swans on some foam tape. And I really liked the contrast of the black and white swan, so I sort of have them nuzzled up together here, just trying to get them centered in front of the little circle focal point. And then I'm going to add one of the flowers to the swan's neck and the crown to the other one. Just wanted to give them a little bit of decoration, and I think these are so cute. I love the little flowers. You can put them on their head or on their neck as like a flower necklace or lei. I'm just trying to get that one in position, trying to see how I like it. I play with flipping it the other way, and I like it that way, so that's how I'm going to have it on this particular swan. I'm going to use one of the little hearts from the stamp set as well, and I'm going to put that in between them there, and then I can stamp out my sentiment. And for this sentiment, I'm using Life is Beautiful with You, and I'm going to stamp out everything but the word beautiful in my black Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. I'm just trying to figure out where I want placement for the sentiment. I kind of like it here all bunched up, but I end up taking it and having it on one horizontal line here. I thought about having it right underneath the focal point, but I ended up bringing it down further on the card. So I'm just going to, like I said, stamp that out. I do stamp this a couple times just so it's nice and crisp and black. And for the word beautiful, I'm going to bring in some Distress Oxides. And Piper's coming in to say hello. It's near dinner time here, and I should have known better than to start a voiceover at that time. But I'm using the worn lipstick, and I'm going to stamp that out. And once I got that closer to the paper, I felt like it was too bright of a pink. So I'm going to bring in some aged mahogany as well and just kind of add that to the bottom, and it's going to give me an ombre look. So I just stamped that a couple times as well, and I thought that that color combination went really well with how I colored the hearts for this card. And Piper is purring away here. So just some added details. I'm bringing in some Nouveau in White Blizzard, and that'll just add some sparkle. And there's card number 1 done, and we can move on to card number 2. I've gone ahead and gotten Piper out of the room so we can move on to card number 2, which is a baby card. So I did the cloudy stencil again, this time with some peacock feathers, and I cut it out with an oval die, and then I just used some of my favorite teal colored cardstock from Heffy Doodle called Tealicious. And I went ahead and cut that out with the oval die as well, and then with the Heffy Doodle grass border. So it's just going to give a nice little grass look around our pond here. And this is the Lawn Fawn ink, and it is Mermaid ink. I double checked that. And I really like the soft, kind of tealy blue color that that ink gives for the pond. So I'm just going to arrange some of the cattails and the other foliage around the card here. So the oval will be the focal panel for this card. I'm going to add the lily pad and then the little water lily on top. And I decided to use pinks for this card. I could have used the yellows, which would have been nice, and that would have made it a little bit more gender neutral. But I'm sort of going with the pink theme for this one. But you could definitely change up the colors as you see fit. So for some of the grass here, I'm going to put it behind my grass cardstock, and then others I'll have in front by the pond, just giving some added dimension to the scene. So by tucking some of them behind the grass, it just looks like there's a continuation from front to back. So once I get this last one in place, then I can go ahead And I'm going to add the little heart to this panel as well that you can see to the right hand side here. Fiddled with that piece of grass for a while and then decided to add another one just to fill out that bottom left hand side. Still have my swans here that I need to get in place. I do decide to go ahead and pop them up, so I am just going to add some foam adhesive to the back of them. Just a few pieces there, and that will add some dimension to the images and allow them to really stand out on this scene. I'll add some foam to the back end of the baby swan, and then I can add some liquid adhesive to the front. Just place him down nuzzled in to the bigger swan here. This could be a female or male swan, so it could be a great card for a single parent as well. So I still have that heart there, but I decided before I added that on, I was going to work on the sentiment. I love all the sentiments that come in this stamp set. It's really versatile. It has sentiments for thanks, for Mother's Day, for congratulations and babies, and some generic ones as well. So I'm going to stamp out Welcome Little One, and I'm just going to use my black ink for this. I thought the black would stand out nicely with the larger black swan. So I'm going to stamp that a couple times there, just making sure that I get it nice and crisp. And then I can go ahead and pull out my panel and finally add that little heart. So I'm just going to figure out where I want that to go, and I'm going to have it kind of nuzzled under the welcome and by the black swan. And I just like how that brings up that pink from the water lily. So I'm going to use a piece of this pink pattern paper. This is from Your Next Stamp Sweet Baby 6x6 paper pad, and everything that I'm using in the video today will be down below with affiliate links, which just means if you click on those links, I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you, which is greatly appreciated. It really helps to offset some of the costs of making videos. So I appreciate you for watching, and also if you choose to click those links, I definitely appreciate your support. So here you can see I'm just adding the focal panel here on to my card. I did go ahead and round the two bottom corners, and then I just needed to fix up a little bit where there was a bit of a smudge by the word little, so I'm just using my white size 10 gel pen. Also adding some white highlights for this card as well. And that will just finish it off really nicely. I love the looks that highlights give to your cards. Final touch here, I'm just going to use some Nouveau Glaze for the beaks. And here's a close-up look of card number 2. And now we can move on to card number 3. For card number 3, I've gone ahead and cut out some more of that Tealicious cardstock with the Lawn Fawn Stitched Pawn die. I'm just showing you that here now. And I'm bringing in the Ocean Wave dies. They're the accent dies, I think they're called, and they're from Lawn Fawn as well. I'm going to add some cut marks into the pond with these dies. I love these because they provide a really pretty accent when you're wanting to do anything with water. So they give that really pretty wave detail. I feel like I just said pretty a lot there. But it just gives something extra to your scene cards. So I'm just showing you here, I'm using my purple tape just to adhere this gently down to my pond, and then I will run those through my Big Shot. I'm just using, you can see me bringing in those images to make sure that I have these cuts in the places that I want them. Then I can go ahead and finish that one to the top, and that will be the final cut using the accent waves. So this is just going to allow me to put the swans behind the little wave die cut, and it looks like they're actually in the water, which is really fun. For the the background paper for this card, I'm using this grass pattern paper from Doodle. This is from their Happy Easter collection. I love how this makes a really easy background scene for the card. So it just gives a little bit of interest without having to do any work at all except for cut the paper. And I really want the pond to be the focal point, so it's just nice and soft in the background, but it does frame up that pond nicely so it doesn't look like it's just floating in air. I did decide to place the pond off the bottom of the card for some added interest, so I just trimmed up where it was overhanging, and now I'm going to go ahead and place my swans behind the little cutouts here. I did make sure when I adhered down the pond that I did not put any of the liquid adhesive near those slits. So I went ahead and added all of those. Now I'm going to glue on the accessories here. I did go ahead and already glue on my swans as well. I did cut out the gluing for this card and the final card just because I know that this is a longer video. So once I have the little flower and crown on our two adult swans, I'm going to play around with the foliage to help frame in my scene here. So this just gives a little bit of extra interest to that simple grass pattern paper that I'm using. So it really just adds a lot of fun dimension and detail to this scene, so it actually looks like a pond with some grass around it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all that down as well, and then I'm going to work on my sentiments. So I cut out a banner, and this is a MFT die that I'm using. It's called Slanted Sentiments. I'm going to stamp that out with my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. I just had to make sure I had it in the right place. And the sentiment is, I just want to say thanks, which I thought was a really sweet sentiment that's just really nice and fun, something different. I really enjoyed this stamp set. I've never worked with swans before, and I think you can get really creative with this stamp set. So once I have that in place, I'm just going to trim that off using my Tim Holtz scissors there. Oh, and here is where I had a little bit of trouble. So I decided to use some stickles to add some silver accent to my card. And I used some pink ones in the next card, and both of these are almost out. And I had to squeeze the containers so hard to ensure that I had enough for the entire card. Thank goodness I did, but it was close, especially for the pink one that I use in the next card. But I do love the way the stickles add some nice glitter details to the card. And then I'm just finishing up here with my white gel pen just to add some highlights. And that's it for card number 3. And here's a look at card number 4. So card number 4 is definitely the most intricate and I guess the most work out of all of the cards that I did, but it still didn't take me that long to create this card. I already went ahead and made my cloudy background there, again using the Lawn Fawn cloudy stencil and the Peacock feathers. And now I'm using the Bayou, it's called their Scene Builder stencil. This is from the new release as well. And it's a 2-step stencil. So I'm going ahead and laying down that first stencil, and I'm using my Distress Oxide in Peacock feathers. And you can see now I'm laying in that second stencil, and I'm just going to go over top of that. So this is going to provide the leaves on the vines, I guess. And now I'm not moving that stencil at all. I'm keeping it in place. And I'm going to bring in some Glitz glitter gel in white. I absolutely love this stuff. Now I knew that the ink from the Peacock feathers would transfer, so I just added a little bit of the glitter gel onto the stencil itself. I actually wanted it to pick up some of that ink, so I'm just going to gently add the gel over the stencil, trying not to press too hard because I don't want it to seep underneath that stencil. Seeing I'm just basically holding it down with my hand and a couple pieces of purple tape. but I can go ahead and just add that to the entire stencil. This gives such a pretty look. I know they have a die like this as well, which if you don't want to fuss with ink blending or adding any type of gels, then that might be more of interest to you. But I like the stencils because they are affordable. And so here's the big reveal. I did let that dry for several hours just to be certain. And now I'm going to work on my sentiment. So the sentiment I chose for this one is, I just want to say Happy Mother's Day. And I'm adding black ink to the sentiment for everything except for the word swan. So I really want that to stick out on this card. And I'm going to use some pink ink for that. And I'm going to bring in my Catherine Pooler ink in the color Pink Champagne. And this was actually a perfect match for the pink elements in the card that I'm going to be using. So I wanted to have that sentiment in the opening underneath the vines. Just had to stamp that a few times there. I wanted it to be a darker pink to match the water lily flowers. Again, using that tealicious cardstock, and I cut out a cloudy border just for something a little bit different, a little bit softer. I could have done a water border or just a simple border die, but I thought the fluffiness of the cloud die was really pretty for this card. So I'm going to add my swan and her 3 little babies here around her, and then I'm going to add some of the cattails behind my water area, and then some of the lily pads and the water lilies into the scene as well. I'm going to have 2 of the lily pads to the right hand side and then the one where it is to the left hand side. Once I get those in place there, I will go ahead and glue those down with my liquid adhesive. You see I'm playing with the cattails a little bit, just trying to figure out where I think they are most visually appealing to the eye. I wanted a lot of those vines to really show in the background. So here is my pink stickles, and right here is where I am having to squeeze that thing for my life to get it out, but I am able to get 3 little drops for each of, well, 1 drop for each of my 3 lily pads. So there's the 4 cards. I forgot to film a recap of them all, but I do have the color map here which shows them all, as well as all the colors I used for coloring the images. I really hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial today. Thank you so much for joining me. Here's a couple more videos for you to enjoy, and I will see you really soon in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.